Okay, let's go in three. This is the exact moment Dragon's gonna join. Two, one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a collective of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today, we are joined by John.
Hi guys!
Hey.
Realmatics.
And Dragon should be joining us later. And I'm ReaderWarrior. And by later, I mean now.
That was excellent.
I have powers.
Speak of the devil and he shall
And
appear.
Say hi, Dragon.
Speak of the dragon, he shall appear.
Yes.
And I'm ReaderWarrior, and today we're going to be not doing Season 5, we are doing Interlude 1 of Cosmere Connections, where we are going to cover the novella The Emperor's Soul. And today we're going to cover the prologue, chapters 1 through 4, or as the book says them, days 2, 3... Is that a 9?
5
9
and 12.
I don't know
5
about my
and
handwriting.
12. 5 is your chapter, reader, and you don't know what it is.
Look at this ugly handwriting.
Believe it or not, I've
Yes.
seen worse.
Yes, so days 2, 3, 5, and 12. We are going to be operating under the assumption you have read Elantris. We are going to be continuing off that. Mistborn, still not accepted, but we are going to be operating under Elantris knowledge. Great.
Duly noted.
Are we doing
Okay.
a spoiler section at the end of this? Maybe
There
at the
will
end
be
of
a
the book?
spoiler section.
Okay, cool.
Okay. We're going to try to do these fast, though.
Yeah, presumably
Okay.
this will go very quickly.
Bold of you
Prologue.
to say that.
I know.
Yeah.
We're taking the long
I've
Bold of
odds.
you when I joined here.
I've made those claims before. Okay.
You presume
Prologue.
much, young Padawan.
Gaotana and Frava, arbiters and important bureaucrats of the Empire, study the copied artwork of Wan Shailu, a legendary forger and thief, and discuss her fate. Other arbiters wish to execute her as a warning to those who practice her horrid art, but Frava says they might be able to use her to fix their tiny problem. As he studies the fake painting, Gaotana finds himself agreeing with her, and he's amazed by the work. He's amazed by the work and claims that she is their only hope.
Say that guy's name for me again.
Gaotana.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's pronounced in the audiobook.
Gautana.
Yeah,
Gautona.
Gautona.
Sorry,
Gautona.
Gautona.
Although
Yeah, just
Gautona.
we
Gautona.
we are still on cells, so there is an argument to be made for saying it his way, but we are also in a different language or a different nation that speaks a different language. So
Yes, so it will
who
not have.
knows?
We also know that on cell, the only thing that has that forced double long syllable sound is
are the Aeons.
are the aeons, because we see that
Gautana.
from
Got it.
I mean, all the other nations, like none of their names have that rhythm. In fact,
That's true. We have
it's very
several
Galadon
Swordish
very
names.
specifically points out that it's not like that. Remember, the door didn't have it, and that's how they knew it wasn't aeonic.
Right.
So
So I
Anything in the prologue other than my horrid pronunciation?
guess it's not horrid. It's unique.
It's just different.
It's stylish.
Okay.
I don't think so.
well, I mean, it's we're just going to be doing a little bit of foreshadowing, I think, into like just this kind of thought discovery that's not fully played out in the chapters that we've read necessarily, but it's just like this thought that Gautana has in looking at this painting of Wan Shailu, right, and seeing and saying like, just like as he talks about, and you can kind of get this perspective of Gautana's that you're going to start seeing play out over the next few chapters, right? His cunningness and all these other things, but he's like starts to kind of think like this painting, like the art that you can see he truly loves the art, right? It's like the mastery, like looking at this, like right? Like the artistry, this majesty turned to forgery. Like why? And so it's kind of like seeing this like thing, and then his kind of internal struggle, which is going to be kind of reflected in again throughout this small novella, but like you'll see in the next few chapters, it's like just kind of this internal monologue that already kind of starts, and he's already more like so perceptive as we learn in the next chapter. But I just kind of wanted to bring this forth, that it's like you're starting to see his cunning and his thoughtfulness and his also just his love of like the art, and kind of that being brought forth right here. That's like this is the seed that plants itself, that you can notice and plant itself in your mind. So
And
just
he
that's the
wants
only thing I want to
to
bring up.
he wants to understand. He wants to know, like, why she's doing what she does. Like, he doesn't understand it.
Right. And with that, it's like you can see his perspective compared to Frava's, right? Immediately she's like this thief, this terrible person. Like as they sit here and like, talk amongst themselves, right? It's like we must use her. Like so at the same time she's trying to like they're talking about using, like her perspective is just so different from Gautana's, which is like this, I wonder, oh, huh, and this artistry, this thoughtfulness, this curiosity about him, compared to Frava's just like sharp, you know, she's a thief, but we're going to use her anyway, kind of a thing.
I would just like to say Gautona for president.
Gautana, so good, so good.
Okay.
Anyway,
Let's move on to chapter 1/day 2. John, I believe that is yours.
It is mine. So, we switch to Shy as her point of view. And she's spending time in her cell as she's locked up, identifying the different stones used to make up the wall in her prison, with the intent of potentially using a soul stamp to change the composition of one and try and escape. And as she's thinking about this, she's identified 44 types of stone, and she is summoned to a meeting. What's the evil one's name?
Frava?
Frava. Yes, I was gonna say Maleficent because that's just what she makes me think of. And it's not even Frava. It's the guard.
Zoo?
Zoo. Yeah.
Zoo.
Zoo shows up. He's a minor character. He's a little guard comes and he's like, "I'm gonna kill you," as she's trying to kind of like banter with him on their way to go meet the arbiters. When they get there, the arbiters read a list of her crimes, Frava in particular, and Shy notes that the only thing that she does that is technically illegal is to do soul forgery, to change a person's soul with her stamps. And she tells the arbiters that, oh, I was near to escaping anyway, so whatever. But as she's going through her planned escape, she realizes that they want something from her. And she sort of interrupts what they're talking about by jumping ahead and saying, "Oh, well, what's my payment going to be?" And they're like, "What?" Just kind of showing that she's a little more quick on the uptake than they are. She's sharp and witty, but they realize that she's figured it out, and so they tell her that the Emperor has been injured in an assassination attempt, and while they were able to heal his body, they were not able to heal his mind, and so they want Shy to spend the next 98 days, which is the length of time that they've been able to cover for the Emperor not appearing publicly, and creating him a soul stamp for a new soul to give him his personality and autonomy back. And in payment, she's going to get her essence marks, which are the ones that she can... Well, we don't know what they do yet, do we?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so I won't say that.
We learn also that she was originally going to escape with the painting The Moon Scepter, but the Imperial Fool betrayed her.
Cough, cough. I wonder who that is.
Yeah. I didn't think of that, but yeah, it is. It must be.
No, it is.
I think that'll
It is.
It
I
is.
didn't. I
to be discussed later.
To be discussed in this movie. Yeah.
Well,
We
I
How
learned
did I
there's
not?
a
Me
we
big dumb.
learned there is an unforgeable metal, Raucalest.
Oh, we do learn that in this
Um,
chapter. See, and that's the whole reason that I wanted this chapter, because Ralkalast is so important. Yes, yes, yes.
Which readers who have read other things may understand the importance, and readers who haven't may learn more about the importance of that as we go through the book. So,
Or at least once we get to the spoiler section.
yes.
You need to be attuning to an essence mark for it to combine with you correctly. And a soul stone isn't necessarily necessary for a soul stamp.
We don't know. Yes, we don't really quite know what soul stamps are. We knew that she was trying to make one out of wood, so it's clear that you can make soul
Right.
stamps out of different things.
And there seems to be a lot going on with soul, like with forging. It specifically says, right, to forge something you had to know its past, its nature, right? So it's kind of like this. There's definitely a depth here to whatever forging in this magic system seems to be based around. There's definitely a lot of depth here that you can already kind of see and read into it. Sorry, Kay, just wanted to kind of add
No.
that into what you were saying.
No, you're good.
And I would also like to point out that forging here is copying, not hitting with a blacksmith's hammer.
Yes.
I think that was pretty obvious, but
Anything
I didn't
else?
have anything else to add. So
I do find it interesting the way that they refer to and kind of talk about like the different like the way that the different peoples are segmented, and that they have them like they consider them like different races. And we learn a little bit more. So I don't think this is really that much of a spoiler. So I'm going to kind of bring it up here. But when it talks about like the Grands, right? She says like, oh, this is a blue road person, the Grands, right? A different like race. And later it talks about like their size and their stature compared to the her Maipon people, right? Who are a lot smaller, especially compared to the strikers, who like these are not just like, oh yeah, these are just professions, but these are like actual like separated like biologically different in some fashion. It could be very, very, very small, like levels of biology, but it's like there's some sort of biological, like DNA aspect that's different between these people to the point where it's like, oh, all Grands are tall and kind of lanky and like long fingered. Strikers are like large of stature. Like Maipon people are always like short, and there's like different race segments. And I just kind of point that out because I think it's just a very, very fascinating piece of this book is like that again, it's like everything is like very small references very quickly. It's a very short piece, but the novella fits like so much thought into it, and that's why he like when they talk about him winning awards, like this is what's like brought up is like he won an award for this writing, because there's just I think there's like to notice these things and see like hey there's like this kind of breakdown of in this area even though they're on the same world as where what Elantris had, and there was kind of some discussion, but there's a lot more blending over there of talking about that and like bigger nations. They all seem to be encapsulated inside of this area but they still kind of have those like racial splits between the different people, and it's very like clear and distinct. So, and it's split not just by race, but now each race has its own class inside of system. So it's both a like an almost like an Indian caste system while also simultaneously being a race split. So
There's a reason this is the one Brandon kind of gives out to film companies. This story specifically. Anything else for day 2?
Well, Dragon talking about that kind of leads into day 3 because that is mostly in day 3 is when they talk about the different races a little bit more. But so day 3 we have Shai has had her bath and she has her clothes. She has everything returned to her. She has her glasses back. We love to see it when people have glasses in books.
Happens a lot in Sanderson books, actually.
um, it,
Like a
yes,
surprising amount
compared
for
to
the technology level.
Yeah.
especially compared to other books, that you don't see it at all whatsoever. You never see people wear glasses generally in a lot of other fantasy books, so it's kind of nice to have a main character have to wear glasses, um, which is kind of fun. So, uh, Captain Zoo is still there. He's the guard for Gautona. Um, and every day, Gautona says that he is going to be in there uh, to watch Shy and keep an eye on her, to make sure that she's doing things that she's supposed to do. Uh, and they do give her so she asked for Soulstone, and we get to see kind of what Soulstone is. So Soulstone is a type of stone that they use for making soul stamps for forging. And they use it because it is very easy. It's almost as soft as chalk, but it doesn't chip when it's scraped. So you could make really precise lines in it. Um, when you heat it, it turns like hard as crystal so that it can't be changed after you heat it with a flame. So, the stamp can't be changed once it's been heated, which is really interesting properties for a stone.
Almost
Magical.
Yeah.
intentional.
Yes.
Capital I.
Oh, and also for soul stamps, we learn that you need to have some kind of organic ink, and that different ink from different organic things works better than others. So, ink from um, animals is better than ink from plants. So, this all has to kind of do with, and the soul stone also is it works the best. It's one of the best things to make soul stamps out of, um, for whatever reason in this world. Like, I think different when you make soul stamps out of different objects or you use different types of ink to stamp them, I think this is kind of implied that they won't be as effective. I don't know if I don't know why that might be the case. I think maybe with the the stamps, maybe it's harder to get as intricate detail in other um types, but I don't know. That's just kind of my guess. Um,
They do say that crystal soul stamps are the best kind.
yeah, but that it is incredibly difficult to make a crystal soul stamp.
Right. Well, and we can just kind of like look at for those that are listening, go look up Soul Stamp on the internet. But like for those that are like watching inside of the book, like the stamps that they bring that he puts as the headers, like there's very intricate like work, and you can see that like that's an example of a soul stamp. Um, so it's like you can see the amount of intricate like dots, there's lines, there's curves, and they got to be really close together in order to work. Here's another example for you visual watchers there again, for you listeners. Go check out, look up, Brent Sanderson Soul Stamp or, um, the Soul Stamp in some fashion. You should be able to see some examples on the Coppermind, of kind of what we're talking about but to try to think to get that onto the size of a we'll call it like a, like an actual stamp, or like the size of like a large, like a quarter, like a dollar bill, like type of thing. Like it's not huge. These things are like pretty small. To get that kind of intricate detailing on anything other than something that carves basically like chalk or soap, essentially, like, but then can harden to be used and like not destroyed later. It's why Soulstone is so like beneficial to have. So, and we get a lot of insight into this, just like looking at the making process and then looking at the symbols inside of the book, for those that are able to look it up. So
So we also get kind of an insight into how Shy kind of feels about the way that forgers are used in the Rose Empire. Which that's the name of the empire, is the Rose Empire. I don't know if it's actually mentioned or when it's mentioned.
what is mentioned?
The Rose Empire, the fact that that's what the empire is called.
Oh,
It has not been called that yet, but I don't think that's
It is,
too.
but it's not
yeah,
really
I don't think
a
that's a
spoiler.
huge
That's the
spoiler.
name of the empire, is the Rose Empire. But
In the
they have how they use forgers, and Shy really doesn't like it, and she kind of talks about how the like vases that they make and everything that they do kind of has no like soul to it and like no passion to it. She really doesn't like it. Um and so
from a
they
from a coding standpoint, I completely understand what it is to like just see a clinical piece of code. It does what it is intended to do, versus what happens when you can see somebody has put like their heart, soul, and passion into a line of code.
They
yeah,
forget to comment and nobody else can read it.
I mean
Typically, you can tell because they don't have comments.
Yeah.
it's the difference between like buying something that's off a like a
Walmart.
factory line, like
Yeah,
something at Walmart,
it
versus buying something
yeah.
from like a small like handmade shop. Like so they so they talk about how Gautona is kind of talking about how he can't really trust Shy, because he knows that she's trying to escape, and um, he can't really trust her with the guards because he knows that she would probably manipulate the guards into letting her go so that she could escape. Um, and he can't be with her all the time, and he can't just manacle her to the bed because she needs to be able to use her hands to be able to make the soul stamp for the emperor. So what he has decided to do is have a blood sealer, which Shy is not excited about.
Hmm.
That a blood sealer is a forger who creates a soul stamp out of bone and inks it with someone's blood. So, and if that person leaves the designated area, then the blood sealer will know and will be able to track them down.
I can envision like you hear like scraping or footsteps, and like you see his like hand reach around the door frame as he comes into view, like hooded, and then he pulls it back, and he's got like that pale face and the beady red eyes.
Yeah. Uh, Also in this, we learn that this chapter, Gautona knows a little bit more about forging than Shy realized, because he calls her out on her escape plan that she had outlined previously. It is like that essentially like that wouldn't have worked. Like you wouldn't have been able to do that. Your plan that you laid out wouldn't have actually worked. And she's like, You're smarter than I thought you were.
Crap.
Crap. So yeah, that's kind of all I got for this day.
That's about all I got.
I have a few pieces that I'd like to add, but John, do you have anything you want to call out first?
Not particularly. I just appreciate Gautona in this particular chapter for his attention to like the science behind doing things the way they did, and like he even goes so far as to talk about the fire from the bricks consuming the air when he, and it shows a level of education that I just appreciate, like especially for a government official.
Right, you've got
Well,
just like this really...
they do plan that the 40-year-old emperor serve as leader of their country for 50 more years.
Right.
Right. So, and I think it's important that we see, again, to his characters, like just like his wit and his like his cunning, but also his like knowledge of things, but also at the same time like his understanding of how things work, but also his lack of understanding of forgery. Very particularly by the way that he's like, oh, we can't leave you in cuffs because you just turn your cuffs to soap. So he's like both incredibly like smart as far as probably things that are just like book learning stuff, right? Temperatures that stones burn at, like air being consumed by fire, like all these types of things. But the knowledge of forgery you can see is very much withheld. Like forgery is messing with the soul. What we do is an art, right? We look upon our heritage. We look to the past, right? You can kind of see like this almost like history professor type of a scenario. Incredibly smart, but again in areas of more like street smarts, right, or things that are not legal, right, he's just totally oblivious. And we learn about this both like, right, so she talks about forgery, because like talking about like the like just complete lack of understanding and how forgery works. Like the forgery has to be likely or believable or it wouldn't take, right. And then she also talks
This
about like plausibility was key to forgery. You're changing, and she kind of talks about like there's people that are just like sitting, like changing kind of these non-vases into these beautiful old vases, but when they fall apart, like the forgery, when it's taken off, the seal is taken off, it just immediately reverts to its old form. But there's got to be some sort of likelihood or possibility to that, and that'll be explored in later chapters. But again, just for all my magic fans, like magic system fans, and that's out there, I just want to point that out. That's it for me.
Makes me wonder if
A5?
a gullible person would be able to create a soul stamp that would be more far flung from reality than someone who has better understanding. Because intent has to. Sorry, this is spoilery ish. It's very
We'll
raw
get
matter.
into the magic system deeper as this goes along and into the spoiler section, Sean. I promise I will bring these things up. So keep it coming as they talk about him inside these chapters. Keep bringing them up. So there's a reason I love this novella.
Okay. Very long and detailed chapter here. Shy would work every day. The blood sealer would come to refresh the mark and leave her be. Her important task would continue, and the only way she would escape is through Gatana. Riveting. Basically, it shows like the schedule, the routine that Shy gets into for the next, 6, 7 days.
Yeah. So, anyone else have anything to say about that very long and chapter
It took so much out of me. I need like a break. Can we pause?
complex chapter? Uh, no? Okay, great. Day 12. So, we get to see our first like actual like on-screen forging of something. Which is really cool. So, Shy puts the stamp into the table and twists it, and the table transforms from the old, battered, like worn down, neglected table to this table that has been taken care of. It's got these fancy carvings on the legs with silver inlay. It's a gorgeous table now. And as she does this, Gautana is like, "Wait, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? I thought you were like working on the stamp. Like, why are you doing this instead?" And she's like, "Because I wanted to, and it helps me
He's
think
never heard
to
of beta
carve."
testing.
Um, and she's like, "I am working on the problem." And he at first is like, he's like, "Oh, like this must be like an imitation of something." And she's like, "No, it's just a table. Like it's just a better version of itself." And that's how Shy thinks of forgery as, is making a better version of the original. Like you're just improving on the original. You're not changing it, you're improving it. Um and that she was told by her original, one of her uh
Teachers.
teachers, thank you, is
Isn't that your job?
That word came difficult to you, Kay?
Listen, it's been a long day. It actually wasn't that long of a day. I'm just tired. um
Mm,
and that's
our
something
public
that she
education
learned.
system.
Yeah.
None of that now.
That she learned from one of her teachers is that like you when you improve slightly on an original, people will often accept the fake because it's superior to the original. You improve slightly upon it. Which is really interesting concept, like if you think about it.
Mm.
Like
I
if you
mean,
just
we live. Sorry.
go ahead.
I mean, we live in a world where like app updates are frequent and constant. Like we routinely see like how websites used to go from just basic HTML to now you've got like AI incorporations.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see how much we improve, the better stuff over what originally was there. That
Well,
old
and
crappy table.
this is a thing that we see a lot when like people talk about like the Mandela effect. Like um I just want to like bring up like some of the things with it, because it's like people like see something and they're like, "Oh, this is how they think it should look," but it's not actually what it looks like. Um and it's just interesting that like the changes that we think should be there, and we're like, "Oh, this is clearly the correct one," even though it's not, which is something similar to what Shy is talking about here. So I just think it's interesting. So Shy then goes in to explain a little bit more about how forgery actually works, to Gautona. So to ask about like, so because he doesn't really know a lot about forgery. So she asked him, she's, why did I have to know all 44 different types of stone in the wall in order to forge it? Why couldn't I have only forged one block? And he doesn't know the answer. He's like, "I don't know." Why? And it's because the wall doesn't see itself as individual pieces, it sees itself as a wall. So, in order to change the wall, to change even part of the wall, you would have to know the whole. Knowing something's past allows you to be able to manipulate and change it, which is how forging works. So it's the three different realms. So there's three different realms. There's the physical realm, which is where we are, the things that you can touch. There's the cognitive realm, which is how objects and people perceive themselves. And then there's the spiritual realm, which is the connections between objects and people. So everything has a soul, everything has a want. Your table wants to be a table. It looks like a table. We think of it as a table. We don't think of it as a flat piece of wood and then other pieces of wood stuck to it. We don't think of those individual pieces as individuals. We think of it as a table. So the table perceives itself as a table. So if you were to try and treat it as individual pieces of wood, it would resist. It wouldn't want to change just one piece of wood because it's not just a piece of wood, it's a table.
No, it is a stick. Sorry, I couldn't help myself there.
No, you're good. And this has to do with why it is such a difficult task that they have asked her to do with forging the Emperor's soul. Because in order to forging the table was easy, because she just had to guess what the table's history was and change one slight thing in the history to make it so that it was maintained rather than falling into disrepair. But forging a soul, she has to know every single detail about his life and his needs and his wants and his desires, his likes, his dislikes, and why, the reason behind them. And if she doesn't get the reason behind them correct, the stamp won't work.
I mean, can any of you answer why your favorite color is what it is?
Yes.
What's your favorite color, John?
Orange.
Why?
Why?
2 reasons. 1, it's the color of sunset, and 2, it's nobody else's favorite color. Very few people have orange for their favorite color. And the first time I remember being asked what my favorite color was, that was the reason I picked orange. I even remember who I was talking to and where she was living at the time. It's a very strange memory, but it for whatever reason, it's stuck in my young brain.
There you go. I have no idea why my favorite color is blue, so. Yep.
My favorite color is red, and I think it's because I had this blanket as a kid that was red.
That's legit. That's fair.
Yeah. My favorite color is purple, and I could not tell you why. I don't know why.
Also fair.
My favorite colors used to be purple and silver, but that's because those were my brother's favorite colors, and I was so close to him for so many years. We literally lived and grew up basically in the same room, eating and breathing and wearing the same clothes and sharing the same friends and everything for like so many years. I just obviously liked everything that he liked. But after we, he left for college and that stopped being a thing, and I started living my own life. It slowly changed from those things, and now it's blue, and I have no idea why, but I just have like half my closet's like blue shirts, and I don't know why. So,
and that's like us having knowledge of our own histories, unable, or in John's case, able to figure it out. Shy's got it. Yes,
for those weird people, that know their own histories and why they have their favorite color is orange. But
yeah, it would be like one of us who like being asked to explain why Barack Obama's favorite color is that color that it is, knowing absolutely like nothing about his personal life, his time growing up. We're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why he likes that color. Like, why would I know that? Like, and that's something that she has to figure out. She has to learn. So
real quick, running bet, what do we all think is Swiggity's favorite color?
I feel like he
I think it's red.
It's either red or blue.
I think it's red.
Well, he's going to correct us on it next week.
Well, that's the thing. We're going to find it. Yeah, so what are the stakes? Come on, I got $5 on blue. Let's go.
Oh,
15
So-
shrivelings.
I'll see your $5 with a loaf of chocolate bread.
Also in this chapter, because
And I'll
there's
bet on
still a little bit
green just to
more.
be different than everyone else.
There's still a little bit more in this chapter. Is that Sky asks, yeah,
Shy?
Shy. Why did I say that? My
It's okay. Don't
Shy.
worry.
Shy asks about what they're doing to
Maintain the
to keep up
illusion.
maintain the illusion that the emperor is still alive, and like healthy. And this is very clever of her, because she's trying to build trust with Gautona. And I think this is one of the ways that she's trying to build that trust with him is by like trying to like help him. But she's also learning about how they're taking care of the emperor
She's
and
also
what's going on
influencing how
there.
they will.
She's also influencing how they're taking care of him.
And not in an insignificant way either.
Yes.
Like Gautona is very much like, okay, what else you got? He's like into it.
Mm-hmm. He trusts her advice with this because
It's
she's
interesting
likable.
with how much he distrusts her at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we see that he is less
trickery.
he both trusts her and distrusts her much more than anyone else.
He respects her skill but doesn't trust her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the little detail that they believe that, oh, there's a new sun every day for 80 days.
Yeah,
And I guess they have an 80-day year system in their belief.
Yeah. I guess they only have 80 days in a year.
Well, is it necessarily in a year? Hold on, let me just double check that part.
Well, they think that a new sun rises every day.
Yes, or rather 80 suns, leaving that even though each looks the same, a different sun actually rises each day. Doesn't say that they only start repeating at the beginning of the year. It's just there are 80 suns, and then that they rise, like a different one rises each day, and that they'll eventually start repeating, but not necessarily they repeat. That could be based off of a month, could be based off of a quarter. Their quarter each maybe month to them is 20 days, so they have 4 months inside of a quarter for them, right? I mean, they have that repeat 4 times. We don't know is the thing. We just know that there's 80 days.
It might say in Chris's little intro to the Celish system at the beginning of the Arcanum Unbonded section.
Okay, but that's spoiler section talk.
Yeah, that we can talk about it at that point.
I guess it's not really spoiling anything, but sure.
For those of us who just have the book, The Emperor's Soul, the novella, we don't have that.
Correct.
I got The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson for Lucy Tuan and Sherry Wang, who provided inspiration,
Okay,
and then Prologue.
I accept your premise.
By the way, UK cover.
Shut up, I hate you.
Okay, anything else for day 12?
Just the only thought that I want to add on this, around like the whole piece of like you need to know all these things, but also like at the same time she's not going to get everything right. I think that draws a lot into like the table was not just repaired, but it's a better version of itself. Like it's not going to be like you can forge things that are not 100% accurate, and that directly leads into a conversation of I'm not going I need to know all the details of like why his favorite color is green, right? Everything with his brother, like we talked about. And thousands of other things. And she's like also admitting, I'm going to get stuff wrong. I know I'm going to get stuff wrong. However, I need to get enough stuff right. And so it kind of lets you know also there's both an exactness in this magic, but also there's like that level of play that we see with the table and that we see with her talking about like is with the emperor's like soul, right? That she's gonna be crafting. And it just makes you, and just like seeing this correlation, like there's going to be things wrong, but it can still work. But at the same time, she can make changes. Anyway, it's just like an interesting like parallel. It's like, okay, can she make changes to the Emperor's soul, or if she can't, she wants to get everything as closely right as possible. But when she messes things up, how will that affect the end result? Because she won't actually get everything 100% right, even if she tried to do everything 100% right. So it's just kind of an interesting like thought to say like, oh, I wonder, like to kind of see, how things are going to turn out by the end of this novella, by kind of seeing this type brought forth with the table. And also for those people that have read Elantris, right? We said we're willing to talk about that. But the table was from Svorden, so we know that these people, the Emperor, got gift from the Svordish Empire as well.
The
Right.
previous
So
emperor.
so we just see this correlation, like they're all in the same world, they're talking to each other, like there's communication. And then there's been strain in their relationship, and that's why it went into disrepair. But that was like this started, like several decades ago. So anyway, just a little tidbit for those that are looking out for it.
Okay. Anything else for this chapter set? Okie dokie. Well, next time we're going to be covering the next 5 chapters, which will be days 17, 30, 42, 58, and 59. We'll be stopping at the end of 59, so don't read day 70. But right now, it is time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you've not finished this novella, Elantris, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend you stop here because it is likely we will talk about everything and anything. If you're up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast. Don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. You can find us at cosmereconnectionspod@gmail.com, at @CConnectionspod on Twitter, and we even have our own Facebook group. We would love to hear from you. But if this were his part, then my name is ReaderWarrior, and I've been joined by John.
Hello. Or goodbye.
Hey.
Have a good one.
And last but not least, Dragon.
Always think about the 3 realms.
Don't forget, there's always another connection. Bye. And we're back. Spoilers.
Spoilers! Ugh.
Okay.
I just know in the beginning you guys talked about Ralclest and wanting to bring that up.
Yes,
So
Ralcalest. So,
Yes.
when I was listening to this again, I suddenly had the realization that, oh my god, they used a term that I'm familiar with, and I immediately thought of the singers, and that's their term for it. And I got really, really excited, right? Like, I was like, oh, connection! And then my head exploded, and I had to, like, swerve to avoid crashing into a wall, right? And then I thought about it more while I was at work and realized that, oh, duh, that probably didn't come from the singers. That probably came from Yolen. And it's way, way less, like, astonishing than I thought it was.
Yes, it's likely not talking about singers actually having been on Cell, but the likelihood is if you think about when they start talking, like people that know the word Raukalest, you're talking about Raboniel, who understood this metal like multiples of thousands of years ago, potentially back from shortly after she was doing this, which was way before this point in Elantris. Elantris happened, I believe, 1,500 years before the current era of Stormlight. Or is it 2.5? I think it's 1,500 for Elantris and 2.5 for White Sand. So you got to look at the time when Raboniel's been alive and kicking, screaming, stabbing, awing her all over on good stuff for the 7,000 years minus 1.5, 5,500 years, right? So yeah, so they've existed, but she's probably known and been using that language for long before this ever happened. So like, yeah, likelihood is you're talking Yolan or you're talking other world hoppers that like how that language got moved over could have come from those from Ashen. But that could have been transferred in different ways too.
Right.
So
it is unknown whether the term Raukalist is of Celish origin alone or if Raboniel learned it from another source.
Well, and that's what I was kind of thinking about, right? Because like if the term originated on Cell, it probably got picked up by Odium during his little executionatory stop there and carried with him. But does that mean then that he brought people with him? Because Ray's was, of the shards that we know, probably one of the more interactive shards as far as like interacting with the people of the planet that he invested. So did he carry the term? Did he bring it to Cell from Yolan? Did it come from, I mean, like there's different paths that the word could have taken, and I think that's very interesting. I like that sort of stuff.
Could have been the Irie.
It could have been, or for that matter, oh crap, where's the word? It's in that dusty noggin somewhere.
Okay, give me a little bit and I can help
Gold
you.
hair people.
Gold hair people? Oh, the Iriali.
Thank you, Iriali. Yes.
Iriali.
I was like, give me a little bit and I can help you pull up the word.
I was hoping I'd be able to pick it out of there myself, but yeah, so it could have been that.
Pick an alley-oop.
It could have also been, what's the planet that the Aethers come from? Whatever the name of that planet is. I mean, there's just so many possibilities.
It's so many possibilities, and the point is, this could have been around for tens of thousands of years, or not that long. But all we know is Raboniel knows about it, and this seems to be something that like
Daughtry?
The ancient ones know, and is not. It's like something they're very intimately familiar with. Isn't like this is a new thing that like came out of the woodworks like 4,500 years ago before we got locked up. Which is still 4,500 years ago, still 3,000 years before, this book is even happening. So the point is, they've known about it for ages before, like whatever this was happening on side of Elantris and Cell.
Also, as a reminder for viewers who don't remember what Raukalest is and are very confused about what we're talking about, aluminum.
Yes.
Might help if we actually explain it.
Aluminum. Raukalest is another word for aluminum in the Cosmere. So I just want to like make sure that everyone is aware, everyone's on the same page about what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah. And it is important because it blocks investiture.
Yes.
Which is why therefore they put sheets of aluminum around the forger's cell, so that way, even if she could forge her way out of the blocks, there's really already an impenetrable, unforgeable wall around it, because you can't use forging investiture on aluminum.
Yes, you cannot use investiture aluminum, or within aluminum, and like for example, like in Mistborn, if you eat aluminum, and you burn it,
There
it
you
kills all of your metals. Um, and
No.
you uh, and you can't soothe someone who's wearing an aluminum hat in Era 2. You find that out. Which is
I
really
figure
interesting.
if people have read all the books and are listening to this, they probably know a good chunk about it. But it is a good call out in case people may have forgotten. You know, it's been long enough since they read Stormlight. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
so.
Let's see, what else is
You know,
into?
Oh, the next fun thing that we had, John had his little aha moment. Would you like to share your aha moment from earlier, John?
yes, the royal fool is Hoyd,
Hoyd. Yeah.
or as
Yep,
as
it is.
I prefer to call him, Safandrius.
Otherwise
Mythos.
known as Wit.
Or Dust, or he has another name too, and it's escaping me, but he has lots of names,
The bearer of the
Baz.
first gem.
and none of them are
The
his.
Mythwalker. Yeah. Or
Yes.
that annoying guy who keeps stealing all of my stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or the coach driver.
Well, the
Do
coach
any
driver
of you
goes by
know?
Hood, so
It's true. Do any of you know the significance of the moon scepter that he stole?
Supposedly, it was about something learning the language or being
No,
able to become an Elantrian.
sort of. So the moon scepter gives you basically the way to transcribe runes from basically move the in
Here, it
Aeon
is a
Door you have to
translation device
delineate.
between sets of symbols that are used to access investiture of the various
Yes,
Zelish magic system.
it's from one investiture type to another around the world. So basically, using this, you can basically create a key that says, I'm going to use Aeon Door, but I am on the other side of the world, so it should be the least effective here. But it gives you basically a translation key so you can use Aeon Door anywhere on Cell.
It's a Rosetta Stone.
It's a Rosetta Stone. So that way, it basically because all magic is location specific on Cell. So the further away from the soul stamps are less effective the further away you go from the Rose Empire. So her just going into like Elantris would greatly reduce the effectiveness of being able to use soul stamps, and so it's just like an incredibly good piece to like understand, and that likely has a tie into him trying to make himself an Elantrian, but is also likely
I
a
disagree with
key, in
that.
my opinion, of being able to understand like, hey, there's a translation from one part of the world to the other. That means it also tells us that there are going to be certain keys when you're making maps and using Aeon Door, which we see used both on Roshar as well as on
Scadril.
Scadrial. Thank you for the word. For the planet, right? So we see it on other planets, and we also see it on Trust of the Emerald Sea, right? So the point is that there's a key to accessing it, and people learn about it later, but it's not an immediate thing. And likelihood is that the Moon Scepter is like kind of like the prototype for all of that. That there is a way to do that, and it lets us know about this.
It's
So
a
very,
piece of a
very,
much
very
larger
critically
puzzle
important,
that could
actually.
theoretically allow conversion between different types of investiture, even beyond those found on Cell.
Yep.
By the way, Cell has a ridiculous amount of invested arts.
It sure does. But it's
Yep.
I don't
because there's
believe
so many
forgery
locations
is
on Cell.
location-based. Forgery isn't location-based.
Everything is location based on Cell. He specifically
Forgery
talks
seems
about
to be just because Shy's able to use forgery without any invested battery or anything on
No,
Scadro. It's only when she turns into a.
Yes,
no, no,
she does. She
she
drinks
It's
the
when
whole
she
she
turns
bottle.
into an Elantrian.
She
No, but
drinks
She
the
needs the
bottle
map
of
in order
door
to
in order
fuel.
to use her, but when she uses her soul stamp.
no, she dips the soul stamp in the liquid, I thought,
Oh, there you go.
from the jar.
I
I thought
okay.
that's what she used to stamp her
I
stamps.
still haven't read that book a second time. Should probably go back and do that.
The point is, she uses the door, whatever the case is. She drinks the door and then stamps herself, tosses the
to
bottle to
to
the
to
side, and then
turn
changes
into an
an
Elantrian,
Elantrian.
but she
Right.
does use the stamp other times, other
But
other
again, she's going to have
stamps.
stuff built in. It specifically says if you look up like the magic system on Cell, is that the whole thing is location based because all of the investiture is being pulled from the cognitive realm, and the cognitive realm is based on location and thought of where people are.
But it's
And
not.
so you
But
can
it's
look it
not
up in the
really.
Coppermind. This is something.
I'm
This is
pulling up
something that I've
forgery.
studied several times.
It
So,
is
but
pretty well established. I mean,
Cell's magic system is location based, but you can overcome that by the way you key in like the symbols. It's again,
Yes.
it's overcomable. We see that with the Moon Scepter, and we see that with the way that the bones of the Dahor, like it's overcomable, but the root of all of their magic is location based. You just got to know the right symbols to put into it,
yeah.
and then you can access it anywhere. As we learn, as the whole point of me bringing up the Moon Scepter is about.
Not everyone who meets geographical requirements can use the magic system, despite what some believe. A forger can forge off-cell if they bring door with them, dipping stamps of purified door, or making them with invested ink. That more so seems to be a power thing, not a location thing. And
Well,
So, but
it just says in order for a forger to access the door on Elantris or on Cell, one generally has to be born in my pawn. So it's ancestry, but not location.
Well, but the ancestry is based
my
from the location because their spiritual roots tie back to the location of where it was originally where it originated.
right. We see
So
the
it's
same
not as
thing.
restricted necessarily as Aeon Door, but it still has a location base root. So in a sense, we're both right. It's not as restricted, but it is also still restricted in a fashion. But it's not as restricted as I thought. So you're right about that, reader.
Okay, let's see, Chip. Day 2. We have no idea what a soul stone is.
I mean, other than that, it's a type of stone.
I was gonna say, yeah, we kind of
Yeah.
do. We've seen it on the page.
Yeah, but we compared to like everything else we know, soul stones are very
I mean, it's a type of stone that's kind of
Yeah, it's
all
probably
there.
similar
rock.
to sandstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some fashion. Although I'm curious what
really
your guys'
sweet
thoughts are on
rock.
the reasons. I have some of my own theories, and
Hmm.
I don't have access to a way to look it up as easily. Why it has to be by come from basically living organic, right? The word is organic. Why the ink has to be organic that it uses. Because instead of using organic ink, you can use door.
Right. I think that comes from the idea that all living things have some level of investiture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems pretty not obvious, but like once you start digging, like it's the sort of natural conclusion.
Yeah. I think so as well, but I pointed out because there's a lot of people that do reread that do have read that may have not like thought these things like have made all these types of connections. This is where we make them, right?
Or not connected the
It
court
is
cell to
possible
Hoyd, like, that kind of thing
it is
happens.
possible that the suitability of the ink is determined by the original investiture of the creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one could argue like the blood of a normal person versus the blood of a full mistborn. One is going to be more
Effective.
powerful.
Yeah, but why make a soul stamp from them when you could make an
Effective, yeah.
inquisitor?
I mean, because you don't have to kill them.
Okay, the look on your face right there.
you dippy, right?
Yeah,
That's all
you
need.
dippy.
Dippy dippy.
Honestly, that would be a great way to control an inquisitor is to use a soul stamp on it to keep it
Oh
trapped.
my gosh, right?
I'd love that. We learned that there's a forgery school.
Well, no, that she not that there
Well,
was
she has
a
a master,
school. Is that she had a teacher, that someone taught her
Correct.
how to do it.
Okay.
Not that we don't necessarily know that there was a school. It's just we know that someone taught her how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't just
We
learn this
learned,
on her own.
yes, we learned that you need to attune an essence mark somehow.
Magic.
Magic,
I
yeah.
also love that this is like
Let me
this
pull up
is
essence mark now.
it take do you guys realize and maybe you can draw to this. I can't remember exactly which book, but I think it's you don't get the full breakdown of this type of like physical, cognitive, and spiritual realm like so succinctly basically anywhere. This
Yeah.
is like
Oh, yeah,
it's
no,
so
this is
clear, so well laid out,
Mm-hmm.
and they are so cosmologically aware. The my
mhm,
pawn and that is I don't believe in your when he's like I don't believe in
your
your in
pagan
your pagan
superstition.
god
Mm-hmm.
superstitions. I was like, oh boy, you in for it, man, because I mean, the next closest thing is you get is basically Yasna's like theorizing on what the cognitive realm is, and that's like basically the closest you get to a breakdown
and it's
for
it's
a very, 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 very long time. Honestly, this is like where it comes from. When most people are actually
pretty
aware
much.
of the three realms, this is where it comes from. Really, I feel like it's not it's like
If
alluded at and talked about, obliquely inside of throughout the Stormlight books.
It's kind of
if used continuously for years, a person may no longer need an essence mark to maintain a transformation.
Yes, it talks about that later on in the book. It's as a possibility, not an assuredly, because that's what she talked about is like, hey, I think this is what's going to happen when you stamp the emperor. We think it's basically like stamping like a big pile of pages.
Mm-hmm.
Is eventually like the imprint will go through and you won't need it as much. But
Yeah.
we don't have any examples of it happening for sure.
Yep. And we also learned that a soul stone isn't necessary to create a soul stamp, and that you can
Hmm.
arguably use anything,
Yeah. Wood,
Yeah.
quartz, bone, and siltstone
which
are
seems
are
to
ones that we've seen
imply,
talked about for sure.
which to me that seems to imply that the ink is what's sort of, I hate to say it, making a small perpendicularity into your spirit web, and then the
Yes,
markings
actually, I
are
believe
some
it is
sort
It's
of.
talked about as many versions of perpendicularities that you're
yeah.
piercing. You're piercing all three realms. Basically, you're almost
So
like stapling all three realms together with the soul
she
stamp.
yeah, she talks about how the stamp is once you press it into the physical object, now it's no longer touching the physical object, it's touching the spiritual aspect of it.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
I'm trying to clarify that I think it's the ink, and that the stamp seems to be, I don't know, some
So
backdoor
Well, yeah, but it's
language of the
also
it's
the
whole
it's
shape that
investiture.
you're giving the ink. So the
it's
stamp
yeah.
is kind
it's
of
the coding,
inseparable.
right? It's the coding language, right? You need the
Mhm.
investiture comes from the blood, the organic matter, right? Or the door itself, right? Dipping it. You need investiture to activate, and then you have basically your key, which is now thinking in and telling it it's the code, right? Because we talk about like all of Cell is basically based off of coding, right? And that's something I know
Mhm.
that you relate to quite well, readers. So it's like you've got your you've got your staple and how it pierces the realms. It needs some sort of investiture that lets it pierce the realms, and then you've got your coding at the end of the thing that then basically tells the spiritual realm how to affect whatever it is affecting. But so a stamp without investiture is useless, just like the blood of someone or the ink is useless without the actual coding piece, because then it won't even it won't pierce. You can't just like take the back end of a wooden spoon that hasn't been carved on and just dip it in ink and then like slam it on someone's forehead and have it just sink in.
So if you
So
just make like a pool of just heavily invested people's blood, would that at some point open a perpendicularity?
it's all going to be about just concentration of investiture, right? It's again the whole thing
Okay.
that happens in the Lost Metal is we have autonomy
It
just
was it
pours
was a
in
fun
enough
comment,
investiture to
man.
make a to make a perpendicularity. It's just is
I
there enough investiture in one spot? Then it will
yeah,
create a perpendicularity, whether
but
permanent or,
It's just
or
I don't
temporary.
I think the amount of blood that you would need to do what you're saying, reader, would not be feasible.
I
want to
think
see it happen.
no, I think it would not be feasible either for a slightly different reason. You, in order to have the amount of investiture in the space you need, you'd have to have a certain density of investiture, and having invested blood is inherently going to be less densely invested than having raw investiture in the liquid,
Okay.
which is what we see
I just
opening a
think Retribution
perpendicularity.
would absolutely do that.
I mean, maybe, but or at least try, but I don't think it would be fruitful, barring some
Okay.
other blood-based magic system.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for day 2?
I like turtles.
Okay. Day 3.
Double check.
So we learned that a crystal soul stamp is better than a soul stone. I feel like we just talked about all of this. Gautona is going to be corrupted, ironically, by the end of this.
Well, he
What would happen?
He wants to understand her, and he will understand her, and he'll come to like her, because she's a likable person.
She does
She's
it
a
through
likable annoyance. So I got 2 questions. Please let's not talk about them for 20 minutes. So if I got a
Don't
brick,
ask him.
I soul casted it into coal, and then I was messing with the soul stamp, broke the coal. Would it turn back into
What?
pieces of broken brick?
Sorry,
start
can you
over. What?
restate the question?
So brick to coal, you break the coal. Does it automatically revert? The answer is no. There's your short answer.
If it is a soul cast, the answer would be
Yes.
no. If it is
Correct.
a if
You
it
said
is
soul cast,
a
sorry.
if
Oh,
it is
you
a
said soul cast,
if it
so
is
that's what I
you
was
said
like.
soul cast.
I meant soul
If it is
stamps.
a soul
There's too many
stamp,
soul.
if it is a soul stamp, it will revert back.
Only
If the seal is broken,
If
Yeah.
the seal is broken.
right.
Yeah.
you could
So,
break
like,
off
if-
a piece of it. You could soul stamp
so
it,
if you,
break
like,
off a piece of
cut off
coal,
the
as
2
long as the
ends.
stamp is there.
Would those pieces that are now not a part of said brick turn back into coal immediately? I mean, brick immediately while the main piece is still coal?
My opinion is no, because it left thinking that, I don't know, actually.
I
Do we
think
have any
might-
examples of something breaking with the stamp on it?
I don't think
Not
so.
really. At least not that I don't remember this.
I'm playing through the
novella
whole book
well
in my
enough.
head.
But here's my theory, and I have a little bit of a reason for why I think this way. Take an object, stamp it, turn it into something else, break off a hunk. Okay. I think the broken off hunk will revert more quickly than the whole piece will, because as it gains its own identity as being a separate piece from the whole, the stamp will no longer apply to it.
So,
That's what I was
and this is
thinking
where
as
I
well.
I feel like I
agree.
agree with that idea, but at the same time, it left thinking that it was still coal, and that's now part of its identity.
Right. And that's the other possibility, is that it is now permanently coal regardless of what happens to the stamp.
Right. And this is where I'd love to hear from Brandon what it is, because that would be an interesting way to basically just mine a bunch of things that aren't there, is just changing one thing into coal or whatever, and then just like taking off a couple chunks, unstamping the original, because now they're not connected, and then stamping something new that's like not as precious into something that's more precious, and then mining it for that.
Well, we already have ways of doing that in other Cosmere systems, like...
Well, yeah, but this is just this system.
This is... Yeah, right. It's once you start monkeying with connection, like, you can kind of do whatever you want. Like, that's where
Right.
the hard magic starts to get a little bit mushy.
Right, and and actually that example of trying to mine, like basically turning a block into something that's different, like a coal that's potentially more precious, and then mining it, makes me honestly doubt the idea of it staying what it was when it's broken off.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
that doesn't hold. That doesn't sound like it would hold true
No.
with
I
the way that soul stamps basically has to pin its soul, and that it can undo when you undo the soul stamp versus soul casting, which
Right.
changes the thing permanently. I think you are right that it would just, you break it off and it would revert. Like,
yeah.
just thinking about it more, I'm gonna go more on that
I
side.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that it would. I don't think it would revert immediately.
Right, but
I
I
think
think
it
it would be
would take a
faster.
little bit of time, but I think it would revert back to the original state that it was in.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's
and it
still
depends on how well the stamp stuck. How
Mhm.
long it would take to revert it.
right.
If it's like one of those, like, it only lasts a few seconds, you break something off, it's like it's all gonna change back kind of a thing, you know, very quickly. But if it's a thing that can stay permanently and you break it off, it could take minutes, hours, potentially even days,
Yeah,
depending on
I'm not seeing
how
anything
stuck it
on
was.
yeah.
So
How
the
well the
Arcanum.
stamp was made, how invested the ink was, all of that stuff.
How long the stamp had been on the object, I
Right.
think, as
There's
well.
lots of levers to pull with that. Yeah.
Yep.
so
And
that makes sense.
my
What's your
second
second question,
question,
reader? We only spent 4 minutes, not 20.
would changing one's blood type with a soul stamp make the blood seal stamp ineffective?
I don't think you can change your blood type.
Why not?
Um,
If she can change where she's
because
born, but if your
So
parents still have the DNA
because
types, that could be something
so
different.
this is my
Okay, sorry,
reasoning
no.
behind it.
Yeah.
Um, it is because you are changing your with the soul stamp, you are changing your spirit web
right.
to have different traits.
Mhm.
Um, and I that you can't necessarily like she doesn't change like her stature or her height, her eye color, her hair color. Like those things don't change with the soul stamp. They like the muscle mass that she has changes. Maybe her haircut changes. Maybe she has a scar. Things like that that are more superficial change. But like the that's kind of why I don't think that you could change like your blood type,
I
like
have a
because it would be too physical of a change. Does that make sense?
I think reader's about to have a point.
I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah.
really do want to hear what reader has to say. I'm gonna let you counter.
JordanCon 2018, your rule. Can you forge liquids like does that go into blood sealing? Can you change their blood type? Brand Sanderson, okay, can you use forgery to say change someone's blood type? Yes. Can you forge liquids? A little harder to stamp liquids, so this kind of comes down to, and then they go on and talk about like water. But
There you go.
Okay.
Don't
word
even
of
have to
Brandon.
debate it.
There
All
we
right.
go. Word of Brandon.
But that
My
doesn't
thought
answer my
around
question.
how it's able to do that is because as long as it's a feasible aspect, if someone can change from I was not on a launching into I have a spiritual web connection that changes my skin, my eyes, my hair, like, then I am AB positive blood type. My mom is an A, my dad is a B positive, my mom is an A positive. I could, and right, but A positive means AO positive technically, and B positive means BO positive technically.
Okay,
So
we got an answer, but we got an answer to that. So like, but that doesn't answer the question.
Okay,
Would
Yes,
so
it
changing
here's
did.
one's blood type change would make a blood seal stamp not work?
no.
No.
And the very simple reason for that is
right.
if you change your blood type, You are changing your personal history to match the new preferred outcome, which means that change would have taken place before the blood stamp was made, and therefore the blood stamp would be made with the new changed blood. This is the same thing that people who write time travel novels always get fucking wrong, and it drives me nuts.
Well, and not only that, but you're also talking about the fact that it's still spiritually connected as your blood, and that's why they're using your blood as a blood seal. Is because it's
Connection.
spiritually your blood, whether or not it changes. Even if it stayed A positive, and I changed mine to B positive, the point is it's still spiritually connected to me. So I still think I don't think it would make it inactive, but I do think you could also, if you can change your blood type, then you could do things like you could say, I'm going to change my hair color, my eye color, my skin color as well. You just have to know how to do that. You just
Well,
have to know how to write the code for that.
Okay.
My height, my body build,
It
as long
has
as
to-
the
As long
genetics
as
are
it
there,
is-
as
right,
long as
that's
the
the thing.
I
genetics
would
are
It
say-
has
there,
to be genetically feasible. So if you have
yes.
no brown people in your family history, you can't make yourself brown.
But if you have a brown person that's 16 generations back, you can make that gene type stronger as long as it had a potential to be there.
Right.
Yes.
So the point is, I can make myself shorter because my brother is shorter. I can make myself skinnier because my brother is skinnier.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Okay.
like I couldn't make myself look Native American because I don't have any Native American heritage.
Correct. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
So like
But I think for her, like, whole disguises, understanding that would be really incredible to see someone start using that as like almost like a Condra-like change type of thing. They can still stamp themselves and then go from a boy to a girl with long black hair instead of short blonde hair type of situation. So
Okay.
anyway,
Anything else for day 3? Yeah. I don't think there's anything we need to cover in the extremely short day 5, so we're just gonna go to
Yeah.
day 12, where we learn about realmatics,
Which we have been discussing nonstop.
which we have been
which
discussing.
we will continue discussing
discussing
to
nonstop
argue about.
for
Yeah.
this entire book.
True fact.
True.
Like, why
So
does the
true.
walnut see itself as part of the room?
So
Maybe it
my
does,
so
maybe it
so
doesn't.
so here's the argument with that is I think that it's both. I think that the wall, because we do see a wall as a wall, we also see a wall as part of a room. So I think that you can manipulate that a little bit. That there's a little wiggle room in there to manipulate it so that you could just influence one wall, because we do think of a wall as a wall. That
Well, and
makes
here's the
sense.
thing. We also learned from soul casting, you can convince something like a wall or something to only have a portion of it, right? The spike just to like turn from stone to smoke. Like it's just incredibly difficult. So it's also going to be about the skill and intent and investiture levels of the user.
Yeah.
We're gonna argue this entire book.
Well,
and
yeah, we'll talk again about
This will
when
come
we
up
get to the part where they talk about
basically
the
every
paint.
chapter. And
Mhm.
next time
Pretty
we'll talk
much,
about it.
yeah.
And the time after, we'll talk about it.
And in Mistborn,
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about it a lot there.
one chapter. Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anything else for this chapter set? Okay.
Think we're
I
okay
don't
here.
think so. Wow, our shortest episode.
Oh, by
Been a
far and
while.
away, and I knew it would be too. Like,
In at least a year. In at least a year.
It's our shortest episode, but it's also
dense.
the fact that we talked about like basically what 10 pages of text
30
for
pages,
an
yeah.
hour and a half.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I said, it is
Yeah.
it is nutrient rich with Cosmere realmatic information.
Yep. I just fell so in love with the magic system and like the depth that you get into in such a short period of time. Like every time I read it, I always just remember just like how amazing that this is. Like I always am like, oh yeah, this is my favorite drag. Like Brandon Sanderson book, and then I like read this, and I'm like, no, yeah, this is I always forget about you because you're so short, but like, man, you really are my favorite. You really, really are my favorite. So I love this book. Novella, not full book.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember
Any
having
final thoughts?
lot of fun reading this when it was given to me as a Christmas present, and I just really thoroughly enjoyed the act of reading this one. It's a good one.
Mm. And I really like Shy in this book. Our
Oh yeah.
main character.
Well, and like the whole Shy Gautona like play off for the
Yeah.
whole time. It's just so beautifully done. So for again, to those that are here, because you've already listened to it, right? You're in the spoiler section, so you're 99.9% most likely to have already read it, you know. Enjoy re-listening or rereading with us, dear listeners, because I think there's a lot to gain, and if it's not something that you haven't gained as much about, I'm happy that you're here to learn and hopefully gain more from this book along the way.
Okie dokie. Well, that is just going to cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time.
Warbreaker is not part of Roshar.
It
It
is
is in
certainly
fact on Malthus.
He wrote it as a prologue to it, for reasons we don't know
It's literally just an intro story for Nightblood.
yet. Yeah.
And Vasher.
Yeah,
shoot.
less so, but yeah.
Yeah.
Can we pull up Stormlight Archive? When
I think
Truth?
Vasher's gonna be more prominent, I think, in Era 2 because of the fact that he is now training Lift. Like, I think we might see him more.
I was thinking about this the other day at work. When asked if Kaladin would continue to be a main character in Era 2 of Stormlight Archive, Brandon said, Era 2 is going to be more about the Heralds. You slimy bastard.